this meeting of Macon County Board of Commissioners to order, and I'd like to welcome everybody and say that we're very pleased that you're here and chose to come to our meeting, and we hope that it will be productive, and thank you for your attendance. The first thing we have, our county manager, I think, we have a North Carolina Association of County Commissioners legislative update video. Mike, you have that? Yes, sir. And so we will play that at this time. I believe that will be visible in their monitors. Commissioners, make sure your screens are on so you can see it.
Hello, I'm Ray Jeffers, the President of your Association of County Commissioners and a Person County Commissioner. I hope you will join me at our 2014 County Assembly Day, which will be held May 28th. County Assembly Day is your chance to lobby your state legislators on issues of importance to counties. To show you how important it is for you to be involved in our advocacy efforts, your Board of Directors agreed to waive the early registration fee for county commissioners this year. That means it won't cost your county anything for you to attend. We have an exciting agenda. Senate President Pro Tem Phil Berger and Speaker of the House Tom Tillis have again been invited to speak, and we have a panel of political experts to discuss the current mood of the General Assembly. County Assembly Day is your chance to hear from state legislative leaders and to lobby your delegates here in Raleigh. Please don't miss this opportunity to help the association achieve your goals. I look forward to seeing you in Raleigh on May 28th.
The Association of County Commissioners membership established goals for the current two-year legislative cycle, and we accomplished many of these goals last year. The second year of the legislative session offers a shorter time frame for us to work on the remainder of your agenda, so we asked members to prioritize outstanding goals to narrow our focus. You told us to concentrate on one goal: reinstate lottery funds for school construction. Counties use part of the proceeds from the North Carolina Education Lottery to build new schools to ease overcrowding and to repair and renovate older schools to better serve students and teachers. Since the lottery's inception, it has contributed $972 million towards these purposes. Unfortunately, economic conditions and growing education needs have caused a diversion of funds intended for school capital needs to other educational uses. For the past several years, counties have received a little over half of that amount that the original law determined for school construction. In the meantime, the backlog of construction and renovation needs has grown. Counties have also had to shift money from elsewhere in their budgets to make debt payments they had planned to cover with lottery proceeds. With your help, the advocates will work to reinstate the original language in state law requiring 40% of lottery proceeds to be used for school construction and to achieve a partial increase in the actual dollar amount for that purpose, with the funds gradually increasing over several years to the full 40%. We have heard from legislators that they are receiving this message from their commissioners. Thank you for your efforts up to this point. Achieving this goal will be challenging. The state has many competing needs, and revenue for the coming fiscal year likely will not be as healthy as anticipated. Please continue to explain to your legislators the value of the lottery funds to the residents of your county.
In addition to advocating on behalf of counties, your association also monitors legal cases with potential statewide impacts to county government. Two such matters from our risk management pool were recently argued before the North Carolina Supreme Court. In both cases, NCACC filed amicus or friended the court briefs to inform the Supreme Court of the specific impacts these cases could have on county government operations. One case involved a county's ability to utilize governmental immunity, while another case involved workers' compensation for a temporary employee. Both cases were appealed because the Court of Appeals decided in favor of the plaintiffs who were suing the county. The NCACC will continue to monitor these and other cases and will inform counties about the outcomes and potential impacts on counties as these matters are decided. Please keep NCACC informed of legal issues in your county that may have effect on other counties. As always, we truly appreciate your feedback and support.
Keynote speaker Neil Peterson will bring to life his round-the-world journey as a solo yacht racer during Friday's opening general session, building real-world lessons from his experiences. Plenary speaker Dr. Vincent Cavello, a leading expert in the field of crisis communication, will address building, repairing, and maintaining public trust in government during Saturday's second general session. The association is also continuing its Youth Leadership Development Initiative with the 5th Annual Youth Summit, which will bring together youth delegates ages 14 through 19 on Friday and Saturday of the conference. Please recognize your county's youth delegate at a Board of Commissioners meeting prior to the annual conference. Registration will be available online in early May. We hope to see representatives from all 100 counties this August.
Is that it, Mike? That's it, sir. Thank you very much. If you would, let's stand if we're going to observe the performance of this together. Thank you. Let's pledge our flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Just a brief question for consensus of the board. I read with interest the past week or so, as I know you did, the Supreme Court ruled that it is legal to have prayer at public meetings. And advice of our attorney we've been having for some time, last couple of years, a moment of silence in lieu of prayer, instead of prayer. And I think as chairman, I'd like to recommend that we ask Chester to give us some guidance on that, and perhaps we could reinstate having the prayers at our meeting with the consensus of the board. Yes. Amen. All right. Chester, if you bring me some guidelines, and we will look at that.
I prepare a memo. It's not a wide open authorization, but there's certainly some recognition and authorization for some type of prayer.
Okay. We'll trust your guidance on that. You come back to us at our June meeting with that, please.
Temporary worker, first day on the job, come to work, they put him in an orange suit so he could be seen. He was told what to do, got behind the package, got run over. And so that's where the workman's compensation should have kicked in, and that should have been the end of it. But the county lost the case, which has impacted across, just so Chris would know what was going on here. So that is the case we're talking about. And on the 13th, there'll be a bus tour coming to Macon County with all those folks you see on the video and most of the county commissioners from across the state. They'll be leaving Asheville at 9 o'clock, I think. They'll be coming to Macon County. They appear to be inclined so much to Bachelor County. So we're going to bring bus loads up over here and see where we live.
Thank you, sir. We have Chester, we have a public hearing that is scheduled for our meeting, and that is for the Community Development Block Grant CDBD project closeout. And we have John Fay here. John, you want to speak to that? So I'll declare the public hearing and state for the record, I think we have no one signed up to speak to that other than John. So is there anyone here that's planning to speak to that didn't sign up? Okay, hearing no one, John?
Okay. On the CDBG grant, it was 10-C-214. It was the Scattered Site Housing Rehabilitation grant, and basically we rehabilitated 7 homes. We had planned to do 8. One person dropped out, so we ended up with 7. On the local auction, which is kind of an urgent repair portion of the program, we actually did emergency repairs to 19 homes, and this is a $400,000 grant. The 7 homes rehabilitated used $232,329.67 of grant funds, and the 19 homes that received urgent repairs received $38,307.05. The total amount of the grant funds that we expended was $270,636.72. The total grant funds were $400, and the balance of the available grant funds were never drawn because basically we had lack of capacity to be able to spend that much money to repair that many homes. So it would take to use the entire amount.
Okay. Any questions of John?
You need a motion on it, John,
Yes,
to
sir.
come out of?
Yes, sir, that's typically what comes on this motion.
Motion to be in order.
It need to come out of our.
Okay. Anyone else to speak to? Okay. Hearing no one, we'll close the hearing, and the motion will be in order this time.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we concur with the information that the state has provided.
We have motion, second by Commissioner Hayden. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. John, thank you, appreciate what you did. We now move to public comment period. This is the time that we invite and encourage the public to speak to any issue that they have on their heart. We have no one signed up for public comment. Is there anyone here that wants to speak that didn't sign up? Okay. Hearing no one, we'll move on to adjustments and approval of the agenda. We have, I know, we have a gentleman here that's for the proclamation for law enforcement for Memorial Day. And that's way down in the agenda, and I know we may have somewhere else he needs to be. I would suggest maybe we can move that up maybe to the beginning of May Day. Do we put that in reports and presentations? We'll make that. If there's no objection, we'll move that. That item is 10F. We'll scratch that from that position and move it up to the first. Anything else anyone wants to add, delete?
I'd like to ask for a closed session for attorney to discuss this.
Is that, purpose of that is acquisition?
To preserve the attorney-client privilege.
Okay, all right. I'm certainly in favor of that. Everybody okay with that? Anything else to be added?
Mr. Chairman, can you remove item 10A under the business?
10A?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That is not being done. Okay, 10A is removed. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
To add budget amendment 164 under consent agenda 157 through 159. I'll pass that out when we get to that point.
Is that the one you emailed?
No.
That's not okay.
So it's budget amendment number 164 under 11B consent agenda. And then I also need to add a change order number 6 for the Swiss Colony project, and it's a decrease. This is the commercial and the delays out. Yes, it will.
Where is that?
Did that, I guess, under new business, a change order number 6 for Swiss Colony project.
Okay, we'll just make that, we'll make that 10A instead of the departments. Okay, anything else to be added or deleted? Okay. If not, a motion to approve the agenda would be in order. So, good motion, second by Bill. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda stands as amended. Under reports and presentations, we have been working on our budget, and I'll remind you that we had a meeting back in January, and we discussed did some planning. I'm sorry. Proclamation of law enforcement Memorial Day. I made the change and forgot. I know that. You'll recognize you. Al, glad you're here. Pull that microphone back towards you. Bend it down so they can get back to you. There you go.
As I stand before the County Commission this evening, I appreciate the fact that you've taken this under consideration. I certainly appreciate Commissioner Beals for pushing this forward. He's been a great friend of law enforcement forever and a day. This Thursday, which is the 15th of May, coincides with the National Memorial, which is held every year in Washington, D.C. for recognition of the officers who lost their lives in the line of duty for this previous year, the year of 2013. This was adopted, and the holiday was set back in the early 60s by President Reagan, and it was in the latter 60s under President Reagan. And what happened was the fact that it kind of laid and lingered for a while. No one paid any attention to it, and finally it took hold. It was, although it was a recognized holiday, it wasn't really practiced. The Franklin FOP, or Macon Jackson FOP Lodge number 81, established themselves in the year of 2002. This is the 14th year that we have participated in the National Memorial for Law Enforcement. It has been held on the town square each and every year. I'm happy to say that this year the state of North Carolina lost only one officer. I'm not happy to say they lost an officer. I say that with reservation. We did lose one officer in the state of North Carolina this year. Years past have been much more horrific, and this year that we're on now is off to a bad start already. However, there's only been one officer that was lost this year. We will recognize him as well as other officers that have given their lives that are near and dear to citizens of Macon County. And I thank you very much for your time and your consideration in this.
Did you want to read the proclamation?
I don't have a copy of the proclamation.
We do.
Yes.
Do you have that there?
I've got one. I don't have a whole business with that. I've got one. This is it.
It's in your agenda packet. Law enforcement liaison.
Okay. This is a proclamation for Law Enforcement Memorial Day. Whereas there are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, include dedicated members of the town of Franklin, town of Highlands, and Macon County, and state and federal law enforcement agencies. Whereas nearly 60,000 assaults against law enforcement officers are reported each year, resulting in approximately 16,000 injuries. Whereas since the first recorded death in 1791, almost 20,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice after being killed in the line of duty, including men and women of the law enforcement agencies of Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. And whereas new names of fallen heroes are being added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial this spring, including 100 officers killed in 2013 and 186 officers killed in previous years. And whereas May 15, 2014 is designated as Law Enforcement Memorial Day in honor of all those fallen officers and their families in North Carolina, and U.S. flags should be flown at high staff. So therefore be it resolved that the town of Franklin and Macon County, North Carolina, formally designates May 15, 2014 as Law Enforcement Memorial Day and salutes the service of all law enforcement officers in our community and in the communities across the nation. Signed, Kevin S. Morgan, Chairman.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve that proclamation?
I will be glad to approve that proclamation, Mr. Chairman, and encourage everyone to attend at noon on May the 15th.
We have a motion and a second, and there is a copy of that gentleman in your packet.
I'll just, because of the flyer with the information on it for the service.
Any discussion on that motion?
That's worded the town of Franklin, should that be, that's worded the town of Franklin?
And Macon County, before you go vote. They're both, they nice ones.
The corrected version is in your agenda packet.
I think we took the wording from one town frame.
Mr. Scott will ask the proclamation.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Mike, there's a signed copy. Thank you, Al.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
See you the 15th.
Well, you know, right after the golf stop,
Yes, sir.
day after tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. With that done, back to the budget. We started back in January with a board retreat. Talk about goals and objectives for the year, to review where we've been, discuss where we're going, and at that time we gave our county manager a pretty clear directive that in did not have any desire to raise taxes, that we had a concern, and I'm paraphrasing, I think all board members agree with me, that headed the revaluation. We want to make sure we certainly provide the services that we need for our citizens, that they deserve to have. At the same time, we want to take a strong look at anywhere we can possibly cut and save money, preserve our fund balance, et cetera, heading into revaluation, because we don't know exactly where that's going to be, what impact it might have on our citizens. So with that said, our county manager began working, and I know you guys have, and I've talked to you many times during the process, and I feel like he's done an excellent job of talking to department heads, county employees, communicating back and forth with them. So Derek will give you the floor. I think he's going to just go through what he said to me today. I think an overall
Yes, sir.
snapshot of the budget, his recommendation, and if we'll, having not seen that before tonight, we'll take that under advisement. And I would ask you to be thinking about, we need to probably have a budget workshop. I'm going to ask if we got any specific questions that we want to go over the county. Derek?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board. And I'll just first like to say that it is an honor for me to stand here before you and present to you my first budget message. And ever since I began working in county government and have been involved in it, this is the place I've always wanted to be standing. And it is truly a privilege to be able to stand here before you tonight, before the citizens of Macon County, and present this budget to you. I couldn't have ever accomplished this without a lot of help from a lot of great people. Lori probably has nightmares about me asking her questions, and as I have asked her many questions, and she's been there, I've called on her time and time again, and she's guided me through this process, helped me with the numbers, and helped me to understand the big picture. I'm very grateful to her for that. I'm grateful to all the department heads here tonight, the sheriff, Chris Stahl, Andy Muncie, John Fay, Richard Leitner, Mike Decker, that have participated in budget discussions with me and been willing to have some tough discussions and prioritize, look at things that are very important that they'll be needing now, as well as some things that can be better left addressed in the future. And in doing that, we feel that we have presented you a budget that it represents financial responsibility, leaves us in a very stable position, as the chairman alluded to. We're going to be heading into some very uncertain times with the revaluation. But before we get into the budget discussion for the coming fiscal year, I would like to first take an opportunity to look back and celebrate where we have been in fiscal year 13 and 14. We've been able to accomplish many notable projects, including the groundbreaking at Parker Meadows. And if you'll recall, in fiscal year 13-14, the board had voted to appropriate $500,000 from fund balance to move forward with that project. Other notable projects in this fiscal year include the purchase of the Zachary Park property in Highlands, the local match funding that went towards improvements at the Macon County Airport, and an increased contribution to the Macon County Schools operating expenses. It totaled $7.3 million in fiscal year 13 and 14, and if you will recall, that came at the boards approving an additional $200,000 on top of the manager's $7.1 million recommended budget for operating expenses to the school system. I think when we look at these accomplishments that have occurred in fiscal year 13-14, it becomes clear the high level of priority this board places on economic development, the development of our children, and the well-being of the citizens of this county now and in the years that come. And I commend you for that. also, it's commendable that we have been able to accomplish all of this through some of the worst economic times since the Great Depression, as we all know and are well aware, yet our financial position still remains strong. We have kept the lowest ad valorem property tax rate in the state. We have been able to retain an available fund balance of 29%. And when you look around the state, counties our size in population, the average for available fund balance in those counties, according to the latest figures from the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, is 27%. If you look at the state average, it's 25%. And as you can see, as I've alluded to, at 29%, we're well above the average of both of those. The fund balance is a very important number as it provides us with a high degree of financial security, allows us to be prepared for unexpected emergencies, and contributes to funding, receiving favorable funding when we go and pursue capital projects. We have a tax collection rate. This year we use a tax collection rate of 96.51%. That is a very high tax collection rate, and that is very commendable to our tax department for being able to allow us to enjoy such a high tax collection rate. All of these things that I've just mentioned are indicative of our strong financial position, and they're direct contributors to the A+ bond rating that Macon County has today. As the chairman mentioned earlier, the January 25th budget work session was kind of the starting point for this budget cycle. And at that meeting, as you had mentioned, the directive was given for no tax increase. You acknowledged that the employees of Macon County provided a high level of service to the citizens of Macon County, and further indicated that you wished for that service level to remain uncompromised. Lastly, we discussed the uncertainty that will accompany the revaluation and how the effect will be distributed across Macon County. And in February of the following month, the board voted to move forward with the completion of the entire Parker Meadows project. The budget that I'm proposing for fiscal year 14-15, it proposes no tax increase. It incorporates the completion of the Parker Meadows project, and it uses no money from available fund balance to fund operating expenses. By taking this approach to the fiscal year 14-15 budget, we have put ourselves in an excellent financial position to address any uncertainties that the future might hold. Furthermore, administration working with department heads will embark in some planning initiatives in fiscal year 14-15 that can potentially save the county money in years to come. And I'll highlight those and speak to those a little bit later in the presentation. Maintaining a healthy fund balance. As I've just stated, the fund balance provides us with a high degree of financial security, and it's something that we should look after and be protective of. The chart before you right now illustrates the expenditures and the fund balance from fiscal year 11-12 through fiscal year 14-15 as proposed. As you can see, in fiscal year 13 and 14, our expenses increased by $618,000, around $618,000 from fiscal year 12-13, and our available fund balance is projected to decrease in fiscal year 13 and 14 by $1.6 million, leaving it at $13,235,000. As proposed, the 14-15 fiscal year budget is 2.9% less in projected expenditures than that of fiscal year 13 and 14. Furthermore, this budget, our fund balance is projected to remain at 29% due to only $366,642 being allocated toward the completion of the Parker Meadows facility. Now, if you'll recall, the board voted to appropriate $500,000 originally in fiscal year 14 and 15. But this allocation of $366,642 is representative of an additional $133,458 being able to be absorbed into our operating budget. The reduction in expenditures and our fund balance position is due to a conservative budget approach by department heads in working with administration, which has led to a reduction in expenditures, the retirement of debt, and a slight increase in sales tax revenue of 2.32%. If you look on the far right, these numbers in red illustrate the net effect that we would have received if all requests from departments and outside agencies had been honored in full. As you can see, our expenditures would have been close to $50 million, and our fund balance would have declined to somewhere around 21% projected. In the fiscal year 2014-15 budget, our expenditures are projected to be $45,521,000 roughly. I still have a hard time working with them double-digit million numbers. I've never had to say them in my whole life much, so it's kind of hard from somebody off Vernon Town to throwing around all them numbers like that. But as you can see here, what I've done here is highlighted the functions that these expenditures go towards. And it is notable that approximately 70% of these expenditures are in the functions of public safety, education, and human services. This chart also, if you will look, it has like under public safety here, you will see plus $49,551. General government, you will see a decrease of $142,668. What that is representative of the increase or decrease in this budget from fiscal year 13-14. And I have included and will highlight some of these functions, especially the public safety, education, and human services, as well as a few other functions as they highlight new priorities and obligations that we will be facing in the coming fiscal year. First, in looking at general government, you'll notice that this function has decreased by $142,000. General government is all the departments that make the county run internally, like your garage, your maintenance, your information technology, your human resources, your administration, your tax collections. It's all the inner workings of the county government. Even with this decrease, we've been able to add one mechanic in the garage. And currently the garage has 4 mechanics. Our fleet has increased to approximately around 300 vehicles. And the workload as these vehicles increase has continued to be placed on maintenance, on the maintenance workers at the garage, the mechanics. And it's also important to note that in this fiscal year, many departments requested vehicles, and those requests were postponed due, of course, to revenue constraints. Therefore, I'm expecting, because of that, an increase in the maintenance that we're going to have on our current vehicles. So I felt that that more than justified adding a mechanic to the garage. Also in this function here, we have had changes to the election laws, which has led to an increase in the Board of Elections budget. And if anybody's been keeping up with that, the changes in the laws have basically required them to revamp the whole way they do things. And there are more changes, as I understand, coming down the pike. So, also in this function, there's increased funding to the tax department to cover expenses associated with the revaluation, mainly postage and advertising. When you talk about sending out 36,000 tax bills, that's a lot of postage. That's a lot of advertising. And even, again, within this function, we have been able to do all this, yet this function is still going to be about $150,000 less than it was in fiscal year 13 and 14. If you'll notice in public safety, we had an increase of $49,551. And I can sit here and assure you that that is not public safety. First of all, that's inclusive of your EMS, your emergency management, building inspections is included in there, the sheriff's department, detention center, all the workings that are associated with public safety are in this function right here. And I can assure you that this increase of close to $50,000 is justifiable, as the increase in the food service line item alone, and using the budget of one department, the detention center, we have saw meals increase 35 cents per meal per day since last fiscal year. This is combined with an increase in the average length of stay for the inmates to 5 days, which is a result of higher bonding amounts. And due to that, the meal, we have seen clearly that the actual expenditures we're going to incur in this fiscal year is going to justify a $50,000 increase in the food service line item for the detention center. While we're still on the detention center, I didn't know this, and the more I got to looking into it, it's just whenever an inmate becomes incarcerated, Macon County is liable for all of that inmate's medical expenses. We have to cover all of them. This has resulted in an increase of $100,000 in the medical treatment line item for the detention center. Last year, $100,000 was budgeted. This year, we budgeted $200,000. When we go through the budget work sessions and you gentlemen begin to look through the budget, you can see in looking at the year-to-date expenditures that this year we have already far exceeded the line item in medical treatment that was approved last year. So again, this increase in medical treatment and food service line item of $150,000, if you take that out of there, then public safety, just due to that, is $100,000 less than it was last year. And those are things, again, that at this point are out of our control. But I would like to say that we have included in this budget, we have, working with the sheriff and Andy Shields, we have been able to locate some insurance that we'll be able to purchase on inmates that, you know, it's going to, we feel it will substantially reduce this line item. So while we're taking a conservative budget approach here, there's services, that's your health department, DSS, senior services, there's a reduction here of $244,000. This is due primarily to a decrease in the community transformation grant. That is why that particular function has decreased primarily. In recreation and cultural, you have Macon County Recreation, Highlands Recreation, and a few other things in there, but those are the two big ones. As you'll notice here, there's an increase of $258,000. That is due primarily to the $500,000 appropriated in fiscal year 14-15 for the Parker Meadows project. You've got that, and then at the same time, you've got $225,000 coming off for renovations to the Highlands pool. That will not be in 14-15. That was a one-time appropriation in 13-14, so that leaves that function right there around $225,000. In education, you will see a reduction of $215,658. This is primarily due to, in fiscal year 13-14, the county appropriated $17,500 to be used towards the master plan for the Southwestern Community College facility. And I think I've saw that plan many times, and it's very clear the effort and the hard work that went into that plan and how that plan lays out Southwestern Community College's needs over the next 30 years. In light of that, this $215,658 reduction is results of the removal of $200,000 from the SEC budget, which was going towards the operating expenses at the Jackson County campus. And in going through their budget and looking at that, I contacted board members, had conversations with Dr. Thomas, and in conclusion, that $200,000 began being appropriated prior to the construction of the Macon County campus. And as our campus has grown here, and as our campus is beginning to thrive, and as we see the needs that are going to be coming from this campus in the future, I did not feel it was sustainable to continue providing the Jackson County campus with $200,000 in operating expenses. I also talked with Swain County, and which is Southwestern has campuses in Macon County, Jackson County, and Swain County. Jackson County and Swain County do not give any money to the Macon campus for operating expenses. And just wanted to make that, to put that out there as well. The funding for the Macon County school system was left at fiscal year 13-14 levels in this budget. The debt service fund, you'll see a reduction of $1.1 million here. That is due, that's pretty clear cut there. We had $1.1 million roll off in debt service. The capital expenditures in the 14-15 budget total $1,182,471. I think it is important to note here that all of these items were able to be absorbed in the operating budget, aside from the $500,000 appropriation for Parker Meadows. The capital items, as you will see here, are focused primarily toward our priority areas that past funding has indicated. If you will look, the Sheriff's Department, we have put into the budget $85,000 for 2 patrol SUVs and a patrol sedan. We put a firing range allotment of $5,000 in there. And emergency management, again, another component of the public safety function. We budgeted $125,000 for a new ambulance, $20,000 for the replacement of a roof and gutter system at the EMS base. In transit, we have put $109,000 for 2 lift-equipped vans. That is a reimbursement. The county will be reimbursed at 80% with federal money, at 90% with federal money in the purchase of these vans. The other $93,000 for grant-funded vehicles is the VTCLI grant, which again from federal money, county will be reimbursed 80%, and the remaining 20% will be distributed among the 6 counties participating in this VTCLI grant program. So the 109 and 93, while we had to appropriate it, we will be getting reimbursed for it. So that's noteworthy, and thought I should throw that out there for you. The soil and water conservation, we budgeted for a 4-wheel drive truck. And in looking at need and looking at length of time since a vehicle had been purchased, they've not had a new vehicle in 27 years. So that I felt that is more than justifiable, as they have just received through grant funding a new lime spreader that was about an $18,000 piece of equipment. They haul that, tiller, they do surveying, they're doing field work all the time, and they're in need of a vehicle that can better enable them to do that. In moving to the human service function, we have appropriated $68,000 for the refurbishment of the motor roller vehicle. This again provides dental services to children in our schools, and it's again in line with the priorities of the board, not only to support our children, but to support the health of the community, and that $68,000 is representative of that. In recreation parks, you'll notice $22,500. That is half of the equipment that was requested by Parks and Rec that will go toward the Parker Meadows project. In approving that project, the board had acknowledged that operating expenses within the Parks and Rec department would increase, and thus we have decided, only since the opening date of the park is still uncertain, we decided to budget half this year to allow us to distribute that $45,000 cost over 2 years instead of taking it all in one. Again, the Parker Meadows project, $500,000 from fund balance, which turned out, as I said earlier, to be only $366. We were able to absorb $133 in the operating budget, and $99,035 for the capital expenses of the Macon County school system. As we've stated, schools and public education is a priority for Macon County. When we take our budget and combine everything and look at current expenses, supplements, solid waste fees, capital outlay, and debt service that Macon County provides to the school system, that accounts for about $9.5 million. That's around 21% of our budget, with the remaining outside agencies and county departments making up around $36 million. So that just goes to illustrate the high level of priority that Macon County has continued to place on public education in this fiscal year. And as I said, this budget is representative in increases in expenditures in some of the functions, such as the recreation function, is indicative of new priorities for the board. And every time I look at this picture, that's just that's pretty neat to think that that we're going to be able to have something like this in Macon County. And the financial position that I talked about earlier, our A+ bond rating, our stable fund balance, that's contributed to us receiving a 2.29% interest rate on $1.8 million over a 10-year term. And that is very, very commendable, and again, is a testament to the financial position that we here in Macon County have been able to attain. When we look at our revenues, the revenues are constant. We haven't seen a dramatic increase in the property and ad valorem tax. It remains around $26 million. We have seen an increase in sales tax of 2.32% over projected fiscal year 13-14. So we have been able to achieve some additional revenue through that. As I said earlier, in the coming fiscal year, administration working along with county departments is going to begin planning for our future. I think that it is key that these capital expenditures, such as vehicles and computer equipment, that when combined become pretty substantial expenditures for a county our size. As you look around other North Carolina counties, many counties are going to these prioritization systems, and in doing that, they're able to save money, because this systematic approach to budgeting ensures that only the most urgent needs are funded based on a set of established criteria, allow us to save some money in the years to come, and I look forward to being able to work on that. And it's just, we ain't got to pay nobody to do it, because we're going to do it in-house. We also need to update some of our policies, including computer usage policies, our financial policies, and our personnel policies. I'm going to recommend that a policy review committee be established to go through these policies, point out some of the weak areas, point out some of the areas that we could use improvement on, and point out some of the areas that make us a stronger and better county. And in doing that, all these suggested changes will be brought to the Board of Commissioners during fiscal year 2015. Lastly, we're going to address performance measurement. Administration, again, will work with the department heads to collect data from these departments that is illustrative of workload, efficiency, and effectiveness. In other words, this data, when we gather it, is going to answer the question of how busy each department is, and that's based on number of cases cleared, number of permits issued, number of service calls received. How busy are you? And then we're going to go into, and we're going to put an efficiency measure in that. The cost per unit of service, average time per case cleared, average number of cases, services per unit. And in doing this, we're also going to answer how effective that each department is in fulfilling their mission by establishing satisfaction ratings, number of complaints received, etc. Once established, this will allow us to identify trends, point out strengths and weaknesses within each department, and ensure that every dollar spent in Macon County is increasing the efficiency and the effectiveness of our operations. As we have acknowledged, we are going to be facing many challenges in the coming fiscal year. We're going to be, in January, our new tax values will be set. The theme of this budget, again, has been gearing down for the revaluation. We are facing some uncertainty as well in our health insurance fund. Fiscal year 14 and 15 is going to be a year where county employees and administration and the board and our insurance providers are going to have to come together and look at some solutions to some problems we are facing in that fund. And last but not least, as the state contributions to public education continue to decline, we have to be aware of that as a county and know that counties like us all across the state these costs are being redirected to them, and we have to think and be aware of that and be ready to address those. Our tax reevaluation, I'm glad Richard's here. That's another person I've rung their phone for the last 3 months. He's probably ready to kill me. But I'll try to explain, when I talk about uncertainty and we look at the effect that this tax reevaluation is going to have on our population, I want to try to explain that to you in the best way I can. Currently, our tax base is about $9.3 billion. When you apply our collection rate at our current tax rate of 0.279, we receive $25 million in revenue off of that. Following the revaluation, our tax base is projected to decrease by 21%. That's $2 billion. And that 21% becomes critical, so put it in the back of your mind. At our new tax base, $7.3 million at a revenue neutral tax rate. And a revenue neutral tax rate is the tax rate that we will have to come up to be able to get the same amount of revenue at a lower tax base. So, as you can see here, 7.3 billion, excuse me, that's with a B. It's 25, right here is 25 million at 0.35. So, and again, that 7.3 is representative of a 21% decline in the aggregate, Macon County as a whole. Now, what effect is that going to have on the population? Okay, right here, as you'll see, Home 1 in the 2007 reappraisal was appraised at $235,000, and these are actual cases from the revaluation. At a tax rate of 0.279, this home in 2007 was paying $655.65 in taxes. In 2015, the reappraised value of this home was $218,000. That's only a decline of 7%. Now, the rule that we can apply here, any time that a property declines less than the decline of Macon County properties in the aggregate, that property is going to get a tax increase. So, as this home declined by only 7%, that means that it's going to get a $118.25 tax increase, even though the value of the property declined. Home 2, if you will look, in 2007 was valued at $1.5 million. At that tax rate of 0.279, that home at that time was paying $4,100 in taxes. In 2015, the reappraised value of that home was $860,000. That is a decline of 42%, or 21% more than the aggregate. So that property is going to get a tax decrease of about $1,132. So the simplest way I can explain it, the revenue neutral tax rate applies to the aggregate. That's what we need to make up that 21% that Macon County as a whole lost in property values. Now, when you apply that to individual property owners, not all individual properties decline by the same amount as the aggregate. Those properties that decline less than the aggregate will get a tax increase. Those properties that decline by more than the aggregate will get a tax decrease. And if you look at the homes of Macon County residents, according to the Franklin Board of Realtors, in 2013, the average home sale price was $118,000. If you look at the United States Census Bureau factors, the average median household income for Macon County residents is less than $50,000. It's around $47,000. So that tells me, in looking at that the majority of our residents, based on that average sale price and that median household income, are living in modest homes. And modest homes, such as the $235,000 home, are those homes that are going to get a tax increase. So that is why that this budget has been structured the way it has. It allows us to head into the revaluation address any uncertainties that might occur from it. Our health insurance fund. If you will look, there are 3 items in the health insurance fund here that are listed. And if I could go to my book there. Him out here for this one. If you will look here, expenses, revenues, and net position, those are the three things that, in looking at the health insurance fund, you have to remain aware of. Revenues in the health insurance fund come from 2 sources: county contribution and employee contribution. Expenses in the health insurance fund account for all medical, prescription, dental claims, insurance premiums, and administrative fees, minus the reinsurance cost. In this health insurance fund, when we talk about net position, that is the amount by which our assets exceed our liabilities. It acts similar to the fund balance in our county's general fund. Basically, every time that a profit is made from the health insurance fund, the net position increases. Every time that we experience a loss or our expenses exceed our revenues going into the fund, that net position decreases. Over the since 2009 through 2014 as projected, that net position has declined by 70%. And in 2009, it's important to note that throughout this whole process, from 2009 to 2014, throughout this whole time period, employee contributions have remained the same. Employees have I've paid the same amount into that fund in 2009 as I do now. But county contributions have decreased. Across the board, they have decreased since 2009 by $350 in every category. And we have employee only, parent-child, employee spouse, employee children, and family. And as I go back to, revenues come from 2 sources: employee contribution and county contribution. When that contribution began decreasing, that's when you see here the expenses begin exceeding our revenues and our net position declines. On average, from 2009 to 2014, $818,233 is taken annually. At the close of fiscal year 13-14, our net position is expected to be $1.8 million. In fiscal year 14-15, however, $1.2 million will be appropriated to cover the projected loss. And you say, it's only $818,000 a year. Why do you appropriate $1.2 million? Well, in 2013, we had a claims year of $1.3 million. And it's just, it's one of those things, it's crystal ball economics. You got to have a crystal ball to peg it. If we assume that this entire $1.2 million that we're going to appropriate in the next fiscal year gets used, that leaves for 2015 only $598,000 in our net position. And go back and apply that average to $818,000 won't cover it. But I realize that this is a worst case scenario. Hopefully, we will not experience a claims year like this. But we also must keep in mind, as we make substantial changes to this plan, which we're inevitably going to have to make, we have to come under the provisions of the Affordable Care Act. And in looking at counties and municipalities that have had to come under the provisions of the ACA, we have saw annual rate increases of the Bessemer City rates increased 31% when they came under those provisions. The city of Roxborough, their rates increased 17% when they came under the provisions. And on average, counties and municipalities in North Carolina are experiencing increases of 9 to 10% in rates when they come under that plan. So just like, we need to keep our fund balance healthy, as we go into uncertainties in changing insurance plans, we need to have a healthy net position that will enable us to address those uncertainties as they come. Lastly, the last challenge we're facing is the inability to include the final portion of the pay plan or the inability to include a cost of living increase in this proposed budget. And this, to me, has been the greatest challenge. as you know, I get to work with these employees every day and see them stay late, come early, and like I said, I couldn't stand up here tonight and give you this presentation without them. And you know, we just, it's going to cost about $500,000 to implement this final phase of the pay plan. And this final phase of the pay plan, the first phase that went into effect in May of 2013 was about $820,000. That's what it cost. And that it brought all your entry-level positions up, of course, and you guys remember this, to the minimum grade, as well as a 2% salary increase to all other employees. This last remaining portion is so critical because that's those long-serving employees that have been in the position for over 8 years. Those are your 25-year employees, your 30-year employees. Those are the ones that we give the plaques to and stand up here and honor. And those are the ones that in many cases are leading the departments. And it is crucial. And then as 14-15 comes and we see what these challenges bring and we're able to overcome those, as I know we will, then I would really like to look at that again in 15-16 and hopefully be able to do something there for those employees. That's a big thing for me. We have left in the budget the 1% annual bonus, Christmas bonus that the employees get, and they're grateful for that. And we also recommended in this budget 16 hours of annual leave to be given to each employee, as we are again unable to implement a cost of living increase and the final phase of the pay. In sum, the proposed 14-15 budget is $45,521,122. As required by North Carolina General Statute, the revenues and expenditures are balanced. Our fund balance available remains at 29%, $13,235,568. This budget's representative of the level of service that we can operate at solely on the revenues we receive. And last but certainly not least, the high quality of service that Macon County provides to the citizens of this county will not be compromised. And again, I want to thank each and every one of you for the support you've given me through this process and the opportunity that you've given me to go through this process. And I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Like I tell you, there ain't no place I'd rather be than right here. And the employees, I can't say enough about them. You can have the finest things, the finest capital equipment, and the best programs and the best software, but if you don't got people, you can't turn the light switch on. So that's I can't say enough about how that each one of them has worked with me during this process and been willing to make tough decisions and make sacrifices, as I just went over in the previous slide. And I want to thank them. And that's the budget as recommended, and look forward to scheduling a work session or work sessions that we didn't include any set dates. I know all of y'all's schedules are very busy and you got a lot of things going on, so I was hoping for some open dialogue at this meeting where we could discuss some potential dates for that. And if you guys want to do that, whatever time that would be. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Senator. Derek, obviously, we've not seen the detailed budget, but looking at what you presented, you're recommending a reduction in expenditures, maintaining our fund balance, no tax increase. I think looking at the big picture, you have met or perhaps exceeded our goals. And from my standpoint, I'd like to say thank you for presenting the budget. I think you've done an excellent job. You have met my expectations. So we'll get into the details. There may be some things we'll make some small changes in one way or the other. I don't know. That's up to this board as a whole, not me. But I'm very pleased with what you've done. Gentlemen, I would recommend, and Derek mentioned this too, today we're talking briefly, we need to have a public hearing on the budget. That will need to be at our June meeting. I do not think we're going to pass the budget that night because if we're truly a public hearing, it's here. And let's continue the meeting to the next week, Mr. Manager, is what we talked about.
Yes, sir.
Part of the schedule. So that would be the 17th. June 10th we'll have a public hearing. Then June 17th we'll meet again to vote on the budget as presented or as amended by the board. So with that said, if we back up, this is May 13th. If we look at 2 weeks from tonight, I'm just throwing the date out. That's the 27th of May. That is legislative the next day. How about Monday the 26th?
Memorial Day.
That's everyone's schedule. I'm open to those.
You got Saturdays,
We can do it on the
24th and 31st.
I'm gone the week, I'm gone the 19th through the 24th. All that week.
And I'm gone the 1st through the 6th.
So we probably need to try to meet sometime the 26th through the 31st. What's everybody look like?
I'll be back on May 29th.
Well, the 8th.
The legislative day is the 28th.
28th,
all day.
and then we'll leave it, have the last meeting at 10 o'clock on the 29th. And that's scholarship night at the high school.
Yeah, that black man.
Scholarship night. I don't know what, but that's, we usually do them Saturday mornings, early, I don't.
How about on the 31st?
Whenever y'all tell me to be there, I'll be there.
It's up to you.
31st, Saturday?
You got it? You got ball game? No, I work.
Well, you do that. Okay. June, you can- Thank you. Because Ronnie's gone, you said the 1st through the 6th. That's right. And we really, we could wait for the 7th, but, we're up here.
That's what we do. I'm a little worried about May 31st.
Yeah, we'll do it, well, what's next week, Kevin? Today's Tuesday.
Kevin's gonna be gone next week.
I'm gone, the 19th to the 24th. We're up to 31st. Looks like, convenient for you to do that. Lori, is that gonna give you okay with that?
Don't worry.
I'd rather do it on a Saturday and try to get it all done in one day and just be done with it.
If you have any questions,
What time you start the show?
9, they're good.
Lunchtime, dude.
Huh?
That's lunchtime for me, Jim.
So you're gonna recess this meeting till then?
Yes, we will.
9 o'clock?
That's fine.
Yeah.
And do we want to be here, or would we rather make some where we sit around a table and talk to Derek about that briefly earlier? Sort of hard to spread out and see things and whatever here. Do we want
Southwest.
If we use
Southwestern
Southwestern.
back here?
After you cut the budget, then I'll let us in.
All the funding for the Macon County campus
Oh, it's in there.
are at current year level.
As long as we don't go to Jackson County, we're okay.
We probably can't go to Jackson.
So at SEC,
Anybody object to SEC? Work. Mr. Manning, would you make that contact? All right, so we'll,
and anybody that needs to anybody wants to come and approach the commissioners about what's in the budget, any department heads, anybody, let's do it all that day,
that's the
right?
time to do it.
Good to me.
And that's
What time?
9 o'clock.
Doesn't work for me. Okay. That day doesn't work for me. That's okay.
And that will be an open meeting, so the public is invited to come, media, everybody. We might make that notice. I'll announce our intention to continue tonight's meeting till the 31st, and then we have after that, we'll have our next regular meeting with June the 10th. At that time, we'll have a public hearing. Is that right, Mr. Manager? And then it would be my suggestion that we recess that meeting until the 17th. That gives us another week, and we'll come back on the 17th without the vote. Everybody okay with that? All right.
Good job.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you.
I just seen Jim standing back there, and I want to extend my appreciation to him too. I got all the other department heads for that. Good to see him standing back there.
Very good. Thanks a lot, Derek. We have Ms. Dale West. She's been patient. Glad Dale's here. She is going to update us on office space with vision for solutions. Dale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board, Mr. Manager. I have to say one thing, Derek. It's never been my dream to stand here and make procedures. Sit back there thinking, gee, what a dream. As you know, several weeks ago, my immediate supervisor and I approached this board with information regarding the realignment of the current office that we occupy on Harrison Avenue, which is the former Employment Security Commission, now known as the Division of Workforce Solutions. Thank you, Derek, for getting that correct. I'm still correcting folks. And we hope soon that we will be a certified North Carolina Workforce Center. I'm not sure if you all have read the information that Governor McCrory has initiated. His new workforce initiation is that it will be NC Works Centers. And I had the opportunity to sit on a planning board where we came up with the name NC Works, so I'm proud to see that the governor is using that. The certification project process is very detailed, not as detailed as your budget preparation, Derek, but I have submitted about a 35-page application to the state. Actually, it was signed today and sent in. So a lot of things will depend on that certification, one of which will be the space that we occupy. What we presented to you when we came was that the Franklin local office is on a list of realignment offices across the state. Realignment offices came about because of the lack of funding provided to our division in the North Carolina Department of Commerce from the General Assembly. Basically what realignment offices mean is that we have to look for free rental space to continue providing services where we are. As you know, the Franklin local office has consisted of the office here. I have 2 branch offices, one in Jackson County and one in Swain County. Both of those offices are currently located in space provided by the county, but we have already reduced the days of services in those offices. Our Bryson City office is open 2 days a week, and the Silla office is open 3 days a week, which is what I do not want to happen in the Franklin office. Many of you know that I have already been moved to Haywood County as the manager of that office, which also includes Haywood, Macon, Jackson, Swain counties. Our Macon County office, the Franklin local office, is no longer considered a local office in the state. It is now considered a branch office of the Waynesville office. So that move has already been made, which we don't know what that means down the road. I do want to thank you after that meeting, working with the county manager and with you, your agreement. He has worked on trying to secure some space for us to have an office to provide services here at some days per week. He has done that. We have looked at that space, and I have gone through a process of trying to determine how to move a 3,500 square foot office into 600 square feet. Last week, I actually had a conversation with the current landlord who owns the building here on Harrison Avenue. He also owns the office in Waynesville that we occupy. He came to see me in Waynesville, and I said, Mr. Liner, you're the very man I need, being an NC State graduate engineer. You can help me do this. I need you to help me design cubicles to put at least 6 staff, partner agencies, employers who want to have job fairs, and interview employers. And by the way, we've had 2 job fairs this week in our office in Franklin, one next week. Employers are hiring. They've been there to interview clients. I said, I need to know how to put this in space. He came in my office, sat down, got my business card, he started writing. I thought perhaps he was drawing me a plan. He slid it across my desk. And this landlord has made a very generous offer. He's going to reduce the rent drastically on the location where we currently are. He has agreed to pay all the utility bills, that's electricity and the water and sewer. We will still be responsible for our phone service and the computer service, as we would be in free space that you provided. He would do this on a month-to-month basis until he either rents or sells this property. He has placed it on the market. Well, I really wasn't sure what to say to him because it's a very generous offer. Contacted our state office, and they do not have the funds to even do that. However, there's always the good news, bad news coming down. Back to some good news. As you know, Southwestern Commission, which is our local workforce area, Haywood West, 7 counties, of which I have 4 of those, the Workforce Development Board of that local area, who is responsible for overseeing that. The services that I provide in our workforce center, it is certified by the state that we're providing those services, and that's what I just mentioned to you, that I have submitted that application. That executive committee met today, and they have decided that they will enter an agreement with our current landlord to rent the current property where I am, and that is to ensure that we are able to stay there, that we'll be able to provide the same level of service 5 days a week in Macon County. This will also ensure that we meet the minimum requirements for space, customer flow. Most of you know that a couple of years ago we had to have a security wall put in place in our office for security purposes. That was because the manager of one of the offices in Hendersonville actually was shot and killed in the office over an unemployment check. It's a major priority in the state that we have security. Our state equipment, our computers have to be secure, and also to provide space for our partner agencies. Our partner agencies come, we have agencies, vocational rehab, DSS, all of these agencies come to our office to interview their customers, so it's like a one-stop shopping. The workforce board decided that this is a priority for Macon County, and so they did vote to. Actually, I will meet with him tomorrow and sign an agreement with the landlord. July 1, they will go on a month-to-month basis with the landlord until he either rents or sells this property. However, the executive committee wants to revisit this in 6 months to see if perhaps we have found, the free rental space that's adequate for us to continue the service that we currently provide. This is an answer for us for a few months, and I do appreciate your willingness to work with us. We want to be here to provide the services to our customers. Not only those people looking for work, but to employers, to those people who are looking for people to go to work, to offer you those services. So, in saying thank you for your help, I'm also asking that I do have perhaps a commitment from this board that if this property is sold, or the Workforce Development Board no longer thinks that it's feasible for them to assist in paying our rent, that the county would again be open to providing free rental space for us to provide these services. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, sir.
a moment, please. Sure. Don't need to let the opportunity pass to express my gratitude to Ms. West and her people. As you're probably aware, all of you are aware, DWS accepts all of the applications for Macon County positions, screens those applicants, and passes all of that information on to myself and our department heads. Without them, what I do day to day has to look radically different, and would require a radically different, probably set of individuals to do that. So, not only does she do a great service for all the people in this county, she does a great service for the county government
Good morning.
Now, on a sad note, Mr. Chairman, if you don't know, a good friend of Dale West, a good friend of this county, died unexpectedly this morning. Secretary Crisco was Secretary of Commerce. He was one 2 years ago who gave our address at BizWeek. He was very familiar with Bryson City. He had worked in Bryson City a lot. We toured Bryson City. He's the one that helped us craft our Gray initiative, if you would, for business development. He was a good friend of this county and a good friend to a lot of people in this room. So our condolences certainly go out there to his family. He just ran a primary for Congress. I think it was 400 votes. The singer was ahead. I don't know if he's going to call for a recount or not, but anyway, Dale was very close to the secretary, as was a lot of us, and he was a good man and a good friend of this county. So I just want to throw that in.
Thank you. Dale, thank you very much. And I can say I think the board will certainly be open to discussions with you in the future should we need to be there. So keep in touch with our county manager. There, keep us up on any changes you're willing to put out. Thank you, Dale. The next item, Richard Locker came to us last month, was it, Richard? And presented us a very detailed, lengthy, 200 and some page document, which is called the Schedule of Values. And as a summary, Richard, I think that is a document that controls how you do the valuation and that kind of thing. You want to give us a little summary about what that is?
And here it is again. It hasn't changed, but it is the manual that you have to use to price everything in the county in real estate. And it's actually two schedules here. The first part, the big part, is all the buildings, residential land, everything like that. And the back part is very small because we're not an agriculture county like Fannin County or something. And it just has a list of the two values that we use for forestry and agriculture if you're in the farm or forestry program. And those are 760 and 195. So basically, that's what you would pay on instead of saying if your land was 10,000 acres, those two values. So actually, what we need tonight is a motion to accept this and adopt it. Two motions, one for the schedule value, and the second one is the use value schedule of values.
You were given that a month ago to review. We've done that. Richard's been in front of us twice now.
And then what will happen after tonight, we'll run 4 weeks in the newspapers, and the public has 30 days to appeal if they see something that's not right to the Property Tax Commission in Raleigh. And then if that happens, we'll have to go to Raleigh and, defend it.
Richard, that's a standard set forth for the state.
I'm sorry, what?
That's a standard set forth for the state.
Well, it's actually the standards, and they're national and international actually. The Appraisal Foundation out of Washington, D.C. sets appraisal standards for any appraisal. If it's Dwight Benson, Guy Duval, or the county itself, that's through the foundation. So it's their standards, but it's local information about what's going on in Macon County. To give you an idea, it may cost $140 a foot to build here for a normal house. Well, if I'm in Manhattan or something, Long Island, it may be $600 a foot. So it's catered to Macon County, and ours would be real similar to Jackson if you was going to compare. because see, they'll do the same thing next year for the following year. So in our two counties, they're like sisters. I mean, they're almost identical.
Any other questions? Motion to approve. Question to approve schedule values. Good second.
You've actually got two.
Yeah.
First motion is
The schedule values.
Schedule
value.
values.
So we'll do the first one first. Your motion for the schedule. Okay, do we have a second to that? Second. Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Then we need a motion for the use value schedule. So we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Richard, thank you. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Rick, and thank you for the money it saves this county for, when we have to do, every 8 years, every 4 years, that doing it through your office, the money it saves this county.
Well, I think the biggest thing is we've been doing it long enough that people have confidence in us, and the same people are here, so it's a better service to the taxpayers. That's what
We ain't had to stop and start like some counties.
we're shot at.
That's right.
Richard, I hate that you might not have this on. What's our price per property to do
We're doing it for about $6 a parcel, and the average is, if we hire it out, would be about $30 a parcel. Jackson County is doing the same thing we are, but they're quite a bit more because some of their stuff's not as advanced. They don't have the people that we had trained over all the years. So it's pretty cheap.
That just goes to show you how efficient our tax.
And more than one county has went through half of their appraisal and stopped spending over $85,000, $90,000 and said, whoa, and backed up and started again.
Mecklenburg.
But the Mecklenburg state, it's still messed up. But that's a local county.
Thank you, Richard. 10 days, you just pass that out.
You don't see many of these, do you? It's a decrease of $816.51. Represents change order number 6, which is the final change order on the Swiss Colony project contractor Buchanan and Sons. So if you approve this change order tonight, this will allow us to make the final payment to Buchanan and Sons. So motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Page, second by Tate. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. 10B, we'll take a little break. I suggest we do it after Bonnie. I think she's like the Bristow is, I believe, house meeting, that kind of thing. So, but
Gonna do miles instead.
we have, where is that?
It's,
He's the, that house.
We'll do that. Right, we have a one-time funding request for assistance for shelter building project with Bonnie Pets. President Rich, Bonnie, thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for me allowing me to come to you. I've been blessed to be on the REACH board for 5 years. I've been president for 4 years. I'm very passionate about eradicating domestic violence and sexual assault. I've been a pastor my whole life, and I've been a hospital chaplain for 16 years. There's nothing worse than being called down to the emergency room to see a woman who has been abused or who has been sexually assaulted. It takes your heart to a different place. So from that, I've always been an advocate for domestic violence, to eradicate that. And it's hard to believe that we live in such a beautiful place as Macon County and knowing that there is domestic violence and sexual assault. Unfortunately, we have that. And so we've had a shelter. We're coming up on our 25th anniversary of REACH being here in Macon County. This last 6 months, we've had to turn away 14 families because the shelter's been 100% full. So for years, we've been looking at building a new shelter. And now we've finally come to the place where we are. We're going to build a new shelter. It's It's going to cost us about $1.2 million. We're requesting over $900,000 from the North Carolina Housing Finance. To get that money, we have to raise a little over $300,000 as our part to build this shelter. We're going to go from a 6-bedroom old farmhouse to a 10-bedroom state-of-the-art facility that we will be able to help more people as they come to us if they're a victim of domestic violence or sexual assault. So what does that mean? We're coming to all of our partners to say, can you help us with a one-time funding request to help us toward our $300,000 goal? So we're asking the county if they would give us $50,000 to help us build our shelter. Now, it's interesting as you get into a campaign to build a shelter, because we can't show pictures of victims of domestic violence. We can't show the children that are impacted by that. So only thing we can do is tell you the story and say, REACH is more than a shelter. The acronym for REACH is resources, education, advocacy, counseling, and housing. But that word is more than what those initials mean. Our staff is an incredible staff who do all of those things, from court advocacy, going with a person to the court, whether they need an order of protection, whether they're getting a divorce, whether they're having to get papers because their abuser has ripped up their social security cards, their driver's license, any of those things. What it is our staff take their hand and reach out to those victims, and often have to reach farther than the victim can reach back, because domestic violence is one of those things that I often ask. When I first started in domestic violence, I was like, why don't they just leave? People say that to me even now, and I go, it's not like you're being assaulted in the Walmart parking lot. You'd immediately call law enforcement. It's somebody you love, and somebody who actually loves them. It's so hard to comprehend that a loved one would actually injure somebody they love, but it happens day in and day out. What can we do? We can offer them the shelter, the safety, the planning they need to move on in their life. So that's why it's so important for us who can stand and say, let us help you. Let us give you a helping hand to move forward in a life for you and your children, that you will have a better life, better education, better employment, better all the things that we can give to you. But how do we do that? We have to build a new shelter. And so that's why I'm here today, to say, would you do this one time and reach your hand out to the victims that we reach our hands out to help us do that. When you think about the families we've turned away, and what that means to those women and those children, it's an incredible heart-wrenching moment. Every time we've had to say, our shelter's full, we can't take you in. So that's my request on behalf of our board of directors for REACH and the staff of REACH. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Do you just serve citizens of Macon County, or is it other counties?
Actually, in the last couple of years, we helped Jackson County close their shelter. And they asked us as the nearest domestic violence to help them. So we went to the county commissioners in Jackson asking them for $25,000 towards our shelter project, because we know that probably for the next 3 to 5 years we will still have to give services to those victims. Our numbers are such that in the last 6 months we've done 482 in-person contacts for domestic violence. Of those 482, 352 were from Macon County, 134 were from Jackson. So we know that we're still going to have to help them. As far as Franklin and Highlands, about 25% of our resources go to Highlands, with about 15% of our in-shelter families from Highlands.
Did Jackson County make that contribution?
They did.
Mr. Chairman, in full disclosure, I think it needs to be said that myself and Mr. Ritter have worked. Of course, Mr. Ritter has done the plans. We have worked together on the budget for this project. I have met in Raleigh with North Carolina Housing Finance Agency on behalf of REACH. It does look like it's going to get funded. We certainly hope. It appears more so. But what I would recommend, Mr. Chairman, with your consent, is to take it under advisement, Bonnie's request, and serious advisement, and that be part of our work session as we move forward with the budget.
It'd have to be something we can include in our budget. If we did that, I would agree with that. Unless somebody's prepared to all that. I think that's
You don't think it's needed? I mean, I had to play the trouble on the league board for many years too. Yet, once you're involved with it and see where they're at now, tonight, as we speak right now, Bonnie will tell you, it is full. It is flat full. Can't take nobody else. I don't know the numbers. I just know it's full. It always is. And the children that's there, and it's unfortunate, but it's much needed, and hopefully this will go through to benefit the families in our community. So we got to give full disclosure that Mr. Ritter, sure if you have any questions, tell him on the building, but I have worked with Mr. Ritter closely on the budget for this project. Yeah, so that's about that.
I'm on the board too, and I want to thank you, Tommy, for what you do and what all the people that's on that board does. Being a landlord for 30 years, I've witnessed firsthand seeing things that happen. You don't go out to everybody else's house just to see what's happening when you're a landlord. You're at multiple houses for certain reasons. I've seen a lot of that. I want to ask this year, I've got two questions I want to ask you. In building this new place, are you still going to keep the old farmhouse?
Actually, we don't own that, we rent that, and so we rent it on a month-to-month.
So you know that go?
Yes, sir.
It's about the children.
Yes.
The other last question I want to ask is this right here, who will compete for this?
Well, the percentage, the statistic is it takes a woman 7 times before she ultimately leaves, finally. So what that means when you average that and you think the number of times they come back in the shelter. But we know that, and how we look at that is each time they come to us, we get them one step closer to having a safety plan. So repeat offenders, that's a hard statistic to give, and I have to apologize, I really don't know what that is on an annual basis, because the cycle of violence is such that usually what happens is when a victim comes into us and their abuser is sincerely remorseful and says it'll never happen again, and so they go back to him. And we call that the honeymoon time, and they circle around and something happens, and then it's a push, and then it's a shove, and then it's the hitting again. And so it takes an average of 7 times for them to say, I'm done.
And for most people don't realize it, that reach also does screw me.
Yes, we do.
Average, when I was on the board, it was about 15 a year, because I was the one that got it. So,
and that's a really difficult one because men are less apt to say that they're a victim of domestic violence. We figured that nationally there's about 5 to 10% of all domestic violence victims are male, but that's a real rough estimate of what that is. Do you have any other questions?
thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll see you on Thursday. I finally got all them packets on.
Bonnie, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. We will discuss that. When we come together on Thursday.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie, very much. We'll just go ahead. We've got one more item in there before Miles is here. Amendment to Macon County personnel policy. Mike, you got that? Everybody got a copy of the recommendation Mike is making. Any questions about that, or Mike, do you want to brief something?
Anybody need me to hit the highlights real quickly, or do you?
If you're ready, just brief something. Okay. Yeah, somebody might have a question, or you want to add anything to it, or?
The only thing I would say is that having this in place where if you spend 30 years with Macon County and you retire, and we continue your medical insurance, please keep in mind, I know there's a cost associated with that, and Lori and I have talked about this, and we've got to make some changes somewhere. We need to start now instead of waiting. But please remember, as a recruitment tool, this is big. As a retention tool, I believe it's even bigger. So it works both ways. But I think we do, starting with our new fiscal year, I think we need to look at doing this a little bit differently with the full understanding that everyone who is covered under this policy at this time is there. And if they serve those time frames, depending on those circumstances, they're covered.
New hires, sign, receive, copy.
Oh, they always, yes, sir, they always do. We will make sure that it's very clear as of, if the board is willing, as of July 1, we will make it very clear that this is the new policy.
And it basically removes the 15 and 25-year stipulation from the policy.
Yes, sir. It takes away the eligible spouse. It takes away the eligible spouse thing for those with 30 years. And the reason he left, I would leave some of that language in there just as a what if. Let's say Mike Decker gets in his 30 with Macon County and he retires and the county's paying his insurance and everything's just fine. But all of a sudden Mike gets an excellent deal over in our neighbors of Jackson County and goes to work for them full time and they're paying his insurance. At that point, Macon County needs to cease doing that. Before that is gives you an out. It gives us an out. Yes, sir. Prospect.
Yes.
Before you concur with this recommendation, questions or motion?
And Councilor, can we cover both amendments? The other amendment is that when we've gotten into a couple of situations here lately where we had someone who did not give full notice of their leaving, and our policy says that we will not pay them their accrued annual leave. In my opinion, and in the finance officer's opinion and the payroll specialist, we also need to make sure that that includes any outstanding longevity pay that they would be due.
I think it should be voted on separately. Theoretically, there might be support for one and not the other.
Everybody understand what we're being asked to consider? And if so, I entertain a motion to approve the first part of the move. Got a motion to a second. The motion and a second, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, you're the insurance man, you looked it over carefully.
I have.
Concurs?
I have, and I think that, there's more to, I think if we're going to continue to, you can't spend more than you're taking in on anything. And we need to make some changes going down the road.
And the fact is, we've talked about this for years.
And there's a lot more work to be done, but we've really got to start seeing to.
Just full disclosure, I have encouraged this. So, and I also encourage them to look at, we have folks retire, and they turn 65, and they've been on our plan, and they're continuing. You go to a Medicare supplement or a Medicare Advantage type program, it'll save the county thousands of dollars to do that. And will also, that way Medicare will become your primary coverage. County coverage would be a supplement, or in the case of Medicare Advantage, it would be their entire plan at no cost for the county. So that's something we really need to look at. That's the next thing we look at. And I'm encouraging that. So I've had discussions with Mike and with the county manager. So I agree we should do that. All right, we have a motion second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Motion on the second part. So moved. We have a motion second by Tate. Any discussion on that? And I concur with that as well. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mike.
I'd like to say one thing you said furthermore to this, and we talked about is the new hirees, that let's say if somebody's 20 years old, they went to work for the county and work 20 years, if they're 40 years old, then you'll be responsible from that time. But well, next year, I think that should be cut out.
You have to be 30, you have to get 30.
Okay, so you're 30, you'd be 50 years old, you go to work for 20, you'd be responsible got them in insurance for 12 years. I see this, it's something to consider.
You have to be of retirement age though. There's a clause about being of retirement age. So if I start at 20 and I get my 30 in at 50, I'm not eligible at that point.
I'm just saying, because when it worked into it, to be considered.
Good time, thank you.
What is retirement age?
64. 64 now?
64.
But see, when you start talking about things in the North Carolina retirement system, they start looking at stuff at 59 and a half. So there's a lot of different numbers you have to do.
Like I say, if you look at the numbers, the biggest cost that we're paying is because of the way it was when people were hired back in the day. You need to change the way we start.
And of course, the Affordable Care Act now plays into everything we do and everything.
It does. But if you change the way you're still going to provide people with good coverage over age 65, you're saving the county thousands of dollars by making that change. So I recommend we take a strong look at that. Okay, the next item, Lori, I think you have this.
Yes.
D, you have D and E, budget amendments.
The D's a capital project ordinance. Back in September, you as the Board of Commissioners approved the match funds for this grant. So this is just a formality to establish the capital project ordinance for the runway widening and rehab.
And you sent us a copy of that.
Yes. That's my email to you, yes.
Okay, any questions, Chester, do you concur with that?
There needs to be a option.
Questions, or I would entertain a motion?
So,
Okay, we have a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. And Lori, you have the budget amendments 130 and 131.
Yes, I believe Mr. Gregory laid some information at each of your desks before the meeting, which kind of goes into detail, but just to kind of sum it up, the runway rehab project that you just approved the ordinance for, back in September, when you approved the match funds of $290,000 roughly. Well, when those bids came in, that project came up in less than move them over to the apron improvements project. And then that's what number 130 does. It takes $10,970 from the apron improvements match and puts it in the runway rehab match. I'm sorry, I have to sit that back up. Yeah, you know what I mean, sorry. And then it also, of course, appropriates the additional grant funds that will be received from the Division of Aviation, including the match. Then budget number 131 takes $10,852 from the runway rehab. Say that 10 times. Match funds and moves it to the NPE grant. And then this amendment also needs an additional $5,815 from contingency in order to fully match that NPE grant. And that NPE grant will be used to finish out reimbursement on the apron improvements. I don't know if y'all remember several months back, I think when we had our meeting up in Highlands, the no-rise study, the county agreed that we would pay for the expenses related to the no-rise study. And when the airport received this NPE grant, which used to be called, I think, Vision 100 grants, you know, that the county would be reimbursed. And there were some AWAS repairs that had occurred, and then anything left they would try to use toward the Beacon Light project.
it's lost my balance.
After this amendment would be $54,645.
Second. Is your motion cover both?
130 and 131.
The total number of dollars we're talking about out of contingency is 58.
58.15, yes, sir.
And the rest of that is just moving $10,970 to April match.
Yes.
We have motion to second. Any discussion on the budget amendment 130 or 131? This motion is second does include both. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all.
Appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Mouse.
Take a break, just
I need to take a break, so we'll take a little recess.
Can I say just one thing before you take a break?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate what y'all are doing. I especially appreciate what Laura and Teresa McDowell has done for us. Had it not been for these ladies, we'd probably be in jail for malfeasance. Because our bookkeeping we just can't handle it. But they've done a wonderful job, and we thank them very much. And thank you all for your support.
Thank you, Miles.
I appreciate your hard work down there.
We'll stand for recess for 10 minutes. Absolutely.
Literally.
This is the second year.
Second year. Literally, like 15 people were like, how much the thinking is that?
Rolling, Joe.
Such an invest.
I gotta put that one.
When I was blown.
I'm glad you mentioned that. On his phone. We'll probably do that.
I think the new photos was
Hey, guys.
starting
We're back in order. I'd like to mention that we have fire department budgets to go through as well, so we might set a time on that Saturday, a specific time to have.
It's a big difference.
My knowledge, we have two, all the departments are staying flat except for two. My understanding is the clerks, Chapel and Mountain Valley, everybody's asked for small tax increases. We have time to get to those budgets. So their recommendation is to let those respective fire chiefs know and set a specific time that Saturday before we can make them. We'll be there. Do we need to be just set them down? They're normally, past couple of years, they don't get it. Some of those fire chiefs come, some don't. All the ones asking for a tax increase won't show up. Well, with that said, we're down to item G, T&G, new business, Franklin Chamber of Commerce fireworks display. Derek, you have that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a letter here from Linda Harbuck of the Macon Chamber of Commerce, Franklin Chamber of Commerce, that is requesting permission from the Board of Commissioners pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes, Chapter 14, Article 54, Section 14-413, to basically have a fireworks display at the Macon County Veterans Memorial Park on July 4th. The legal counsel has brought to my attention this will come following the issuance of a permit from the county, contingent to approval of that permit. However, they have to prove that they have somebody licensed to shoot the fireworks. So, if I understand right, and Chester, correct me if I'm wrong, what we're looking for is basically to authorize me to approve them for shooting the fireworks on July 4th if they meet the standards as set forth in North Carolina.
Commissioners to approve it subject to the presentation of the
and I can sign on their behalf then, to the permit?
As long as that motion county manager can sign on their behalf, they approve your credentials.
If I could, Chairman. Motion second, I take.
I'm the one that actually shoots them.
Hey, there we go.
Mike Tramble. You don't tell them the whole story, Mike. Then Mike went down there. I started.
There is 4 operators and we're all licensed.
Good deal.
We have an inspection one time of alcohol back on power. That's not the right thing. Oh, it's a big one.
We have motion second to approve. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you, Michael.
The consent agenda contains minutes of April 8th, 29th, May 1st, May 5th. Budget amendments 157, 159, and 164. And then tax release change to making it from health fee. My memory on one thing changed was a DOT exam, right, Paul?
DOT
from $90 to $105, I think. Yeah. Whatever. And then monthly annual tax collection. So, if any member would like to remove something or a motion to approve all that together.
Motion approved.
So, we have motion second. Higgins, second by Tate. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? That motion passes. We have appointments, the community funding pool, my memory is that those folks are up. You probably contact them, Mike, and see if they want to continue, and we can do that in June.
Yes.
Okay.
We have received no other applications for those seats, just to be clear.
Yeah, it needs to be said that this community funding pool is one of the more important groups that we got. They take a lot of pressure off this crowd right here. And they do a wonderful job. They're very fair and thoughtful, and they work hard at it.
We'll check on it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have planning. Yeah, planning board, we have two seats available there. I believe both those seats, this is the terms of Lamar Sprinkle, who is indicated does not want to return to planning board. Is that correct? And then Bill Futrall, and Bill has applied. We also have applications from Jimmy Goodman and Mike sent one from Carl Gillespie. That's what we got to do about that. So two seats available.
I'd like to make a request for that on Mr. Gillespie.
Second.
So Bill Futrall will continue, and Carl Gillespie, who was the former chairman, motion for the two of those, and second, any discussion?
I have a question I want to ask about Carl Gillespie. He had stayed his term out when in this April anyway, wasn't it?
He left at the end of his term.
He left at the end of his term.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he left at the end of his term?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, fuzzy on that. I want to double check before I honestly.
Because I believe there's a year period in there that he couldn't serve, ain't it?
You can reappoint. After the term,
I think we made the changes when we made those changes that we were running for consecutive terms.
If my understanding serves me correctly, you would need to serve 2 consecutive full terms. Then you would need to go off for a minimum of a year. Then that could be real, if I remember.
Yeah. And we started.
He
We
served
didn't consider past that. We didn't consider past term to start.
That's true. We started fresh at that, when the policy was adopted, that started everybody fresh at that point.
That they could go full 2 terms and then be off for a year.
You would be able to serve up to 6 years consecutive, and then take a year, and then take a year.
2 to 3 years.
I mean, I think that's the way that runs. It was to say that whatever they got then, they were allowed to have one more term, and then they had to take a year off.
I'm not sure. Let me revise my motion to say that presumably we're meeting the rules. Let's get my motion.
I believe the rules of the one to there.
I understand. I don't want to do anything inappropriate.
Well, I revise my second to revise to make sure we can rules, I think we are.
And we will double check that and let you know.
And if not, we can bring it back forward.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. The library board, you've got, I believe we have a memo from Karen Wallace there about that. Janice Lynch has served 2 terms. Yeah, did I answer your question? Served 2 terms. Wasn't eligible to serve again. Lenny Jordan, take care of the open seat. The other one is Dale Stickett's seat. And Lawrence Roberts, right?
Chip Roberts.
Chip Roberts.
And as liaison to the library board, we've done these, first of all, these are 2 great people just coming off the board. As Commissioner Tate can attest to Dale Stickett and Howland. Very, he's one we work very closely with on the Hudson Library transfer, and so both these people, we're thanking them. These 2 people that supplied both have a good heart for the library board and the libraries of Hudson and the Macon County Library. So I make a motion that that these 2 be appointed as submitted.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? That motion passes. That is all I had prior to request for closed session.
Mr. Bill, is the library sending letter of thank you or just?
Well, the county needs to send a letter of thanks. I mean, he's good.
Commissioner Havens requested closed session for attorney-client privilege. Second. That motion? Second. Motion seconded by Tate. Havens made the motion, seconded by Tate. And Mr. Havens, would you anticipate before taking action will come out tonight, or is this information?
It's just totally information.
Okay. We anticipate no action. So all in favor of closed session, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We'll be back.
Ready.